sold my first case the other day. Lemonade and melon and white.
I never eaten that.
Ollie and Val's about doing a whole front page right January something like that. And then the lanes. Yeah, right. So he's going to go in lanes. Lanes are being really big on everything. It's really on brand. I've been to a couple others, and everyone there has tried been like, we love it. I'm building the perfect email.
And then Linda's just going to look at me being like,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have here in my hands some whiskey. We have here our latest release, which is a blended malt for the first time. And we also have here this man, Mr. Sebastian Wolf, who will be talking about all the incredible procedures that went through his head to choose what went into this whiskey, and we'll taste all the bits. Do you know how much covers it?
Yeah, that covers it.
Tonight, you'll notice we're also live streaming for the first time. This is an experiment, which is why we've not told anyone that we're live streaming for the first time. But it does mean that on the brand new spanking Cut Your Wolf Loose YouTube channel, you'll be able to go back and relive the moments of joy and wonder that you had this evening. So I'm going to pass this out.
Be joyous.
Yeah, that's fine. Wolf does that. It's like,
We have no bandwidth on live.
smash that like us.
Yeah, that's
Ring the bell.
That's exactly how I'm starting this, knowing it really is. So basically, so the whole purpose of the tasting, really, aside from the fact that this is the experiment one, edition one of our blends, if you like, is to understand what components go into it and be completely transparent with the components that go into it as well. So we all know what goes in, why they've gone in, why we've put them in, and it just kind of gives you an idea as to kind of why the final flavour tastes like it does. There's 5 components to it, one of which we've only got one of the years for, and the only reason being is because they taste pretty similar to, and that's the Balmanac, and there's only one reason for that. But I want you guys to try this first component, because it's going to probably melt your mouth and minds in terms of kind of what it is, and then let's have a chat about it and why we've chosen to stick it in. We can talk about the distillery and how much it makes, and I'm sure you'll all have questions or whatever it might be around those elements, but I think try it first and then understand. Let's have a chat. We can have a chat together about it, and sort of go from there. And if you want to sort of maybe, it's up to you, but you can always keep small bits back, and then you can have fun at trying to blend something yourself if you're really that keen, or you can have the actual product which we've got at the end, which saves you the time. But yeah, try it. It's interesting. So this first one is, excuse the Tomatin, bit of their promo. This is where this particular, it's called Balmanac, which is the first distillery that's gone into this. This is Inverhouse owned, so it's again another family-run owned company. They own a number of different things. Balblair, I think it is, Old Patelny, and a number of other bits and pieces. But this one is 2017. We've also got in this particular one 2016 as well, which we don't have. But in terms of its profile, pretty much identical. So really young, extremely high in strength, and this particular product is used predominantly in blends. So it's quite meaty, and it's quite acidic in terms of its flavour, and that's the reason why it's pretty oily as well, and that's the reason why people use it, and they use it young as well. It's not like they waste time with it, they just keep it as it is. So they'll use it 3 years and it'll go straight into blends. So if you get anything older than that, we ended up having, just to give you an idea, I can be very specific in terms of the actual component amounts here. It's a real squeaky damn fucking chair. I just want to squeak all night, actually.
No,
Just imagine that, an hour of squeaking. Such a weird fetish.
ASMR. Really shit.
That's all right, no, I don't need to. So basically, yeah, it's just sort of looking at the exact components, because we can also be very specific in terms of the amount of litres that went into the blend. So this particular amount, which is the 2017, we used 33 litres of alcohol only for this particular blend. So it's not a huge component to the actual blend itself. But try it, let me know what you think.
Why is it clear?
Because it hasn't aged that long. So there's not much wood interaction with the actual whiskey itself. So yeah, as you can see, it's almost clear. So almost new make.
It's 3 years old.
It is only 3. 17. It was 3 years old when it went into the barrel.
So how many litres was the total blend?
The total blend was.
Is this going to be in the description below?
It will be in the description below, near the subscribe and sign up. I'm so glad. It was. Oh God, I haven't got the exact litres on here. Oh yeah, 121 litres, pure litres of alcohol was the total amount. By adding all the parts together.
You got what, 5 different things?
5 different entities that went into it, yeah. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever tasted a whiskey quite like this.
No? Enjoying it?
Yeah.
Good.
I really like
But right on. Yeah.
Right.
No, hey.
Somewhere between tequila, grappa, cachaça.
But it's super dry, so that's like the dryness you get that you want to get as an individual component. You know, an older version of that would actually be pretty delicious. But there's an element of sweetness to it. But again, that dry part is a component that you do want in a blend, and so that was used. All of these parts, to give you an idea, I mean, you've probably seen some of the other elements that we've got, which are the cut the leftovers loose. They're kind of bin end parts. So these are larger parcels of products that we've decided to then take those elements and go, right, okay, well, we've got extra of that. What can we use it for? Tell you what, we know the flavour component. Let's see how we can kind of look to then start blending it. And so these are experiments. So it just happens that I think that the experiment turned out okay, which is why we're selling it now. You guys can buy it. But there's a sweetness. If you leave it in your mouth and you've sort of tasted it, there's a really nice sweetness at the end as well, which actually you can taste through the blend at the end. So, be a really good one. But what are your thoughts? Any questions on that distillery at all?
What was it aged in? Sorry, was it Virgin Oak?
This particular one isn't Virgin Oak. No. This is second, third fill. It's just something, fourth or fifth. I mean, it literally is going to be something that is pretty horrific, and it's just the volume, spirit. So all you're getting, I mean, as I say, it is almost clear. So, but amazingly, over the course of time, if you age that long term, you know, in a second, third, or fourth fill, it'll be unbelievable because it will just take its time in terms of its sort of aging. So, actually, it's not an unpleasant flavour for something there, and it just sits just under 70% as well. What's interesting, I don't know for anyone else, is that you can't. That again, the strength. I've always said every single time, the strength is not something that's hugely apparent. Might just me being maybe used to it,
Sanitised.
close to alcohol.
So then, for a dram like that, what's the primary function of
This
blend over something else?
So it's the flavour. So it's the oily flavour. It's the dry flavour that you get. It, again, you know, you were describing it perfectly in terms of kind of what it is. It's like grappa. It's got that kind of sort of really dry wood at the end of it, which kind of you know you just have no saliva left in your mouth. And I think that's the purpose of this particular one. It kind of adds that edge to kind of the blend overall.
If someone told me that was really young, but it had been aged in a cognac cup, I'd be, oh yeah. It's got that great Guinness going on. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What region is that distillery from?
Speyside. My research, half an hour before coming in for the tasting.
Don't say that on camera.
Oh shit! No.
This was quite nice. I did,
We like to hold this
Like
story.
Paul Taylor.
Seb, we're going to need to work on your camera sort of present.
I do, yeah, I know. So I need a new shirt and a tie, maybe.
No.
That will really confuse me.
No, that is like what the people would be confused on why you dressed up.
Oh, well, I've dressed up now, or what?
Yeah, if you put a shirt and a tie on, like.
I know, it'd be like a news report.
I mean, they'll probably wonder who
Live.
played.
Yeah, proper green screen.
Actually, yeah, we'll just do a VTube.
A green screen, yeah, with a warehouse behind. Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
I'm literally wearing painter's gear right now. Like.
Yes, and the only reason it's used is because of the flavours that it adds. And that's, so this stuff you don't often get. A lot of indie bottlers might choose to do some single cask, but the bulk of it goes into blends.
Are there any other whiskies that are quite as oily as that then as well? The texture of that, like, slightly different from anything else. Fine niche as well, is it?
It is, yeah, but again, it's that's more.
I think it's the
It
combination
is oily.
of
That's
oiliness
kind of
and
buttery.
massive ABV, right? It's
Yeah.
got a really nice contrast.
Yeah, it's a nice whiskey. I like it. Not enough to bottle it as a single cask.
Not ready
I didn't
yet.
say that.
Damn, that goes on a sponsorship deal from Balmain.
we can edit it and post your price.
Cool.
I might want to privatise this video after it's up on the site.
Probably. Yeah. To our one viewer.
We'll have the original version.
No, I'm just talking about so people can't name this.
No one's watching it,
And
mate.
he or she was only there for the squeaky chair. So.
Yeah, no, they're gone now, so.
Yeah, exactly. Right, cool. Let's do the next one. So yeah, that's the first. So that's the meaty, heavy part of the component. The next one is a much lighter one, which is a Glenglass Ale. Still young, but as you guys try, it's fruity, tropical, totally different, and it adds a completely different dimension to the actual flavour. And I think that's also something. But let's try that. Yeah, have a chat. Or have anyone got any other questions on that dram?
I guess the start has an individual bottle capacity.
I don't know if they do actually. Do they? Yeah, as I say, some of the oldest, and there are some indie bottlers that do bottle it as a single cask. So it's, but as a single cask, it needs to be aged much longer. In this cask type, I would say at least 15 to 20 years. If you're putting it into new oak, which is what we'll try on the Highland Park, which is also part of the component. And again, you need to do short maturation, 3-5 years, then switch it into something which is. But because it's already tasted, it already has that kind of wood note to it, and that's just the liquid in itself. You wouldn't do that. So sherry.
Here we go, folks. If your first glass is empty, just hand it to me.
I've now got
Oh, that's lovely.
Takes away a look like a good.
Was it basically context of the distillery and then saying I'm like this is my objective, we've got a sale and then
Actually, so a lot of the products that we have, we would use a single cask brands like so as a byproduct of that, with other products that have still got aging, we're now able to experiment and try and do things like this, which is quite interesting because you're making, you're taking flavours that are already there and actually you're making something which is quite hard, really. It's not an easy thing. So yeah.
I got a bottle of carbs.
So yeah, so that's the principal way of.
Outside the deli, on the outside of the and full video also in that. No idea.
So the next one. So these two, I think it's quite nice to have before we go into something which is slightly smokier, because these are two components that have kind of, I would say, polar opposites in terms of how their flavours are. Glenglass Ale. So this is a young Glenglass Ale. It is. What was the one that we stuck into the?
Our one's 6 years.
Got a view.
2017, so it was a 5-year. So the first two components, so this component and the Balmanac component, were placed into a sherry butt for 2 years. So they were both combined together for 2 years, continually matured. So basically we wanted to see how the two worked together for that period of time, so tasted periodically in order to try and understand whether it was going to be a better flavour, worse, and again it's all about experimentation. You know, we're lucky that we've got the access to the stocks to be able to do it, but for us it was about kind of understanding how the two married. And these two are quite interesting because they are, like in my opinion, you guys might think otherwise, which is great, and that's the purpose of this, but in my opinion, polar opposites. This one's really fruity, really light, delicate, and actually when you put it with something that's really bold like the Balmanac, you get quite an interesting combination because you get lots of flavours going on, the deep, bold Balmanac, and then you get the kind of fruity tropical notes that you get from Glenglassaugh. So again, this is just a bourbon barrel, I think it was. Yeah, which is great. And in terms of its quantity, it was a smaller quantity than any of the quantities that we decided to put into the actual spirit itself, into the actual blend. It's only 5.5 litres. There you go. So a small number. There you go.
So the theory behind it is it because it is so polar opposite, and obviously one is like near enough 70%. What's the ABV on this one?
66.6.
Okay, so it's not shy.
No.
But I mean, is the theory like to have like top and bottom notes kind of thing, and then
Exactly,
see
yeah.
what comes
So
together?
it's about basically trying to understand the Balmanac wasn't unsweet, and you got a flavour of that, but you kind of, I don't know, just feels thicker on the mouth.
Yeah.
And then when you try this, which is a Glenglassaugh, it doesn't. So what you're doing is, I don't know, again, this is all part of the experiment, is kind of thinning through the flavour, but also adjusting it and adding more to it. So you end up with the kind of thickness that you get in the mouth from the Balmanac, and then the kind of thin tropical flavour profiles that you kind of run into on the Glenglassaugh.
So basically, blackjacks and fruit salad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The two ends of that. Exactly, the two ends of that.
That one both.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whack them in together. Boom, shakalaka.
Yeah. So it's the sweet. It's exactly that. It's
It's
the
not
sweet,
like it's sweets for me, Peter. That's what I'm saying.
sweet savoury.
Danger, stranger danger.
What combo?
Yeah, I've missed out. I've never done
Yeah.
Yeah.
this. Now I can't get them for 2p anymore.
2p.
Poundland sunshine. That's all you need. Poundland.
So this one did this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tomorrow.
And fruit salad.
Tomorrow's quest. Anyway. So yeah, so that's those. So have you got any questions on anything to do with Glenglassaugh? Not that I know a huge amount about Glenglassaugh as a distillery, or anything that kind of we've done.
So how long ago did you think about doing this? So if you put these two together for 2 years, you're not thought
3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of it was a long-term project based on, to say, elements that we had available during the process. We've got lots of product which has been aging for a long period of time, and the question is how do we go about using it and why we're using it. And we had opportunities with what we felt were the correct volumes of product to complement each other. So we thought, okay, well, let's just try and do that rather than, as I say, just mix it all together. I think we were talking about it earlier on, mix it all together like last week and then hope that we can get something decent out of it. I wanted to get something that actually tasted like a single malt at the end. And I think the only way that you can do that is by kind of convinced myself that if I put it all into one barrel, then it kind of would be that. And it kind of has kind of worked out a little bit like that. So that's, yeah, so about 3 years in total. So yeah.
So you've got experiments on the go there.
Yes. Yeah.
How did you decide on the amount? Because obviously normally I feel like 3.3 to 0.5 is quite a interesting blend amount.
So it was, again, purely what we had available to use, and also, as I say, I think it was, again, it's all part of the experiment process. It's trying to understand. I think if we'd chucked possibly more Glenglassaugh into the mix, I think probably the whole profile at the end, and you'll probably find that when you try it, would have been too thin. It would have felt too watery, and I think a lot of blends don't seem to have the depth. And Balmanac gives you that kind of long depth of flavour, which you don't, which is why it's kind of used a lot in blends. So it gives you that kind of distance to say a lot of blends now. You try it, it's on the mouth, it's great, and then it's dead after literally 2 seconds. So that was it, yeah.
Is there any way to sort of create the end products ahead of time by like staging something, like putting that all together into a smaller thing, staging it for like 3 months to see if you might get a better idea of what it might take up to 2 years?
That's a good question. Probably. You could probably do that. You could probably do it in a smaller, your smaller octaves. Yeah. You could do it in a smaller containers.
Or do you need it to rest for that amount of time?
I think the thing is that with whiskey, it's interesting because of the oils that are within the actual product itself. I think actually the longer you leave something or liquids together, they kind of bind together, and you end up with a much more unified flavour rather than something that has been hyper-aged. We've hyper-aged stuff in single casks to try and understand what it's like. And actually it's interesting because the Highland Park, which is the next one, is in a new wood, so you'll get to taste exactly what you're talking about. It's kind of okay, so that is a new wood flavour, and you get a lot of wood flavour, but that's the advantages of using the individual casks in order to kind of try and get the components together that give you the flavours that you kind of want. But small octaves as well. We did have Heaven Hill, which was in a small octave. The last was finished a few seconds ago, but a few minutes ago. But again, it's understanding those things. You can put them all into individual things and then kind of like go about playing around with it. But again, it becomes quite an expensive way of doing it, I guess, because each of the casks will be a lot of.
I was thinking about you have your recipe and be like, right, let's just see if we can get this 2 years from now what it tastes like. Let's do flavors.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a hack. I don't think there's hack, unfortunately, for speeding the. Yeah, it'd be cool though.
Put it under pressure and do it.
Yeah.
That work?
No, it's the heat. It's the heat that normally gives you the. It's just it's such
You could
a.
accidentally put it in a shipping container and send it across the ocean, and then go, fuck, what just happened?
There was a shop I worked in when I was younger, and we had the
Toys R Us.
it was a whiskey shop. It was a whiskey shop. We basically had soup, 100-day-old soup, where it's like just keep it in the same pot going over again and again, and you add more bits. We had a living blend in the shop, and so they were their own distillery. They produced a lot of their own stuff, and we had this small 50-litre capacity kind of barrel sat in the corner of the shop, and every now and then we'd just get some of our own single malts and just whack it in the barrel and top it up. And it was this evolving blend thing where it was there's no clear balance, there's no this is how it's put together, it's just whack some of this and some of that in and see what you think. And it was a really, really popular thing because it changed all the time. It was crazy, and I wonder whether that's sort of maybe in line with what you're talking about. It's like a kind of
they do that with mezcal,
half and half thing. Yeah.
It's like a popular thing to do with mezcals. Like have a blender, like a big kind of you can adjust it with different mezcals.
That sounds really good.
It's fun.
I think this what illustrates though. It's like for all the big brands that create these, like Johnny Walker. It's incredible how for each of the lines they create a consistency with their flavour.
Yeah.
So you kind of think, how the hell are these guys doing it? And you just think they are regularly making sure that everything tastes the same. It's I don't know. I mean, other than kind of if you go back to vintage bottles, which taste very different to today, but it would be very difficult to distinguish between a 2021 Johnny Walker Blue and a 2023 Johnny Walker Blue, even though the liquid in it, is probably from different cask types, different, it's probably been blended by different people, even though there's the master distiller and his genius. Yeah, he's a computer. But that's the point. It's kind of, don't wreck the illusion.
It's exploded the industry wide open, live on the internet.
But I think
Readership goes up
To our
two.
one viewer.
0 now 2. Come on.
No Texas backsies.
But yeah, I think, but it just goes to show that these blenders, they're super good at being able to create consistency, and if they can create it, and they can do that, and then they can shift lots of bottles of the same because people recognise the flavour, then it's cool.
Seth,
Yeah.
how much does oxidisation in the cask? Do you encourage that, or do you fill the cask up when you blend? When you put the first one down in it and you chucked in the Glengato, if you chuck enough of them gases until you fill up the cask.
No. So this is, remember, this is going into a sherry butt. So there is still a lot of air in there. To be fair, if it's sealed correctly, you're not gonna lose much in terms of its strength. And we're only talking over 2 years as well. So
But the interactions with the air in the cask
Yeah.
and the whiskey,
Yeah.
you wanted that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I had no choice. So again, that's part of the experiment. It wasn't an intentional element I wanted to occur. And also, you know, in that situation, what you would normally see is a reduction in the alcohol. But, you know, we didn't see that at all.
The first one you put was almost 7%.
Yeah. In fact, what we used to pull the strength down was the last element, which is the Kalila, in fact, which had a leak in it. So it had dropped in strength quite considerably. So it was just, well, how do we use this? We can use this for the flavour compound, which is exactly what most people use that for, which is to kind of add that kind of peat and smoke. Yeah, you can try that, and it's quite an interesting one because it's.
Is that 40%?
It is 42, I think it is. Yeah, it's a low relative. Yeah, 42.4. So it's you don't often see single cask at that strength. So I didn't pull the strength down at all. The actual final blend is actually sat at cask strength. So it is effectively all of these single casks that have just been kind of effectively pushed together. So it was quite interesting to use something that was a lower ABV to actually just basically balance it. You know, we could have used a 55%er, and I think that would have just been crazy because the actual heat of a blend, I think it would have just been too much. So, but you might think actually otherwise. You said next time use a high strength one of these or whatever it might be. But it's all down to personal taste, isn't it? So, yeah.
It's an interesting one with oxidisation because you get a bunch of industries and a bunch of people who've tried to shortcut the aging process, and you get whiskies which by their very nature can't age for a long time. And we had the guys from Milk and Honey in talking about their process. They can't age for longer than 5 years because all the whiskey would be gone pretty much. They're aging whiskies at between 30 and 50 degrees centigrade, depending on which one it is. And you will never get flavours that you get in Scotch from oxidisation and from that sheer amount of time in the barrel in those whiskies, in bourbon, whatever it might be, just because it's something unique to maybe cognac, where you're aging in a cellar and you get oxidisation because you're aging for a ridiculous amount of time at low temperatures and low climate change and things like that. You get a very slow aging process. But yeah, there's definitely flavours that come out in the older scotches that we get when you hit above 20, 25 years that you just don't see. Whatever you try and do, STR, whatever it might be, they only come from grumpy Scottish weather and a long period of time, for sure. On that bombshell.
Right, the next one, the next component is Highland Park. So Highland Park itself is quite interesting because I think it's quite a saline flavour, and again it gave us an opportunity to add something else to the mix which kind of sits between the two that we kind of have currently within it. It's also slightly smoky as well, so there's a slight hint of smoke to it, so it kind of allows something else, another sort of dimension to be thrown into this kind of blend, which for us was also something that we wanted because we find that a lot of blends, and I one day I actually went out to buy, I was determined to try and understand about blends, and I went out and literally bought about 50 blends just to try. No, I didn't try them all at the same time, but it was basically trying to, but it was like trying all of those, and it was just going through all of them to understand whether there's a decent taste on it, why they've chosen to do that, who the company is behind it, and just to kind of understand. To be honest with you, I didn't find one that I could get on with and say, you know what, I could probably drink that and I can enjoy doing that and I can kind of pour that or mix mix it or do what I want to do with it. In fact, probably Johnny Walker was the closest I could come to that, and that's kind of saying something about kind of what they do about their kind of blends. But everything else just felt a little bit too. It just too low in strength. The flavour profile, there was no depth to it at all. I didn't know what had gone into it, you know. And if you did some research onto the actual blend itself, it was interesting because you would find the company that owned it owned a couple of distilleries, so you presume that was probably going into it. Yet you couldn't actually taste those flavours, knowing what those flavours are like from single casks I've tried and sampled. So it became quite a problem. So, you know, that's kind of why we sort of picked these sorts of things. So this is a new oak. And just to add again some more, it's a slightly different flavour profile, but adding some wood notes to your kind of drink, which is kind of exactly what we've done, and a little bit of that smoke element as well, which kind of goes into the mix, which is really nice. I mean, on its own, this is really nice as well. So, what's that? Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of add, yeah.
Kind of APV on that?
63. And we put 46 litres of this in, which, if you look at
this
the
sample is lower ABV before you.
Yeah. So if you look at the colour, it's one of those things that also adds some colour to it because there's more thrown into the. Yeah. But again, you know, tasting it, to me it's not quite finished because it's quite saline in terms of its flavour. You can taste that on the palate at the front, but it's not finished. There's a slight bitterness to it, so it's still not combined as a single cask. So, but you know, that's why it was kind of thrown into something else. Yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, I don't know how much. I think, what is it, Edric? I kind of looked at their kind of blends and what they were kind of doing earlier on. It's grouse, isn't it? That's it. Yeah.
Do we ever find out from those big boys has anyone like leaked their ratios and their makeup or anything like that? No. Not that have lived.
Yeah, Compass Box do. I think it's more to show off their really great ability to be able to score really old casks to then mix it with some other stuff. But John has done an amazing job, and actually about 5 years ago I was chatting to him about kind of how, you know, his approach to blends and what he was doing, and it was kind of, I think the mentality was quite similar, and he's kind of really created his own little marketplace for blends because he's got a premiumised blend space which he can charge. It's actually one of theirs was one of the blends that I went out and bought. Oh God, it's the grain one.
Is it Hedonism?
Is it the one where they have?
Hedonism is the one with the pure grain.
It's a grain and something else. I can't remember what the fucking name it was. But yeah, they did. But they've worked out. I think this is kind of like at the base end level. I think it's 30 or 35 quid for this one. But then they've worked out how to be able to create, you know, some of these amazing blends where, you know, they can charge 250, 300 quid for a blend, and you're thinking, you know, they've managed to do what, you know, some of these big companies have just not managed to do at all. Where, you know, the likes of Johnny Walker could easily do. They're like Diageo could easily go into their vaults. They could create these blends, but I don't think anyone would think in the same way that John does in terms of being able to kind of pick and mix kind of all these sort of elements. So
These plays with wood as well. These are crazy woods.
yeah, they do. Yeah, they do a lot of the wood, different types of wood, which is great because I think that's also adds to kind of flavours and stuff. I think now he's just about to open a distillery actually. So. Which is one of the 8 million that are opening in Scotland, which will be great. Is it Islay? Yeah, 8 million on Islay. It'll just be one giant distillery. And they'll have like a fucking giant, great, I don't know, drill going down, and everyone will be pumping out the water and spilling it off, and the peat, you know, and it will be going off. And
That's a label.
that is another story for another day. Yeah. But yeah, so, you know, yeah, they're very good at what they do. But yeah, they list. Did they list the actual quantities as well? I haven't seen.
So didn't they get into trouble for that through Scotch whisky?
Stop being so honest.
Yeah, it's like this is not in the kind of the game. This is not how we should be behaving. It's like, oh, cock off.
Is that what they said?
Well, I think he did. I think he said, no, I'm off.
Great recipe.
Exactly.
It was from the same region as you.
It's got the recipes, yeah.
I really hope that picks up.
It's really clever, and I think that's a really good way to be. To be fair, if you're making a blend, why would you not tell people what you've made? It's like if you go to a restaurant and you're eating food. I think isn't that part of the process? It's that you know what's gone into it. You're excited about what you're seeing. Is it locally sourced? Is it not locally sourced? Those sorts of things. I think people want to know.
But then
Whether it's free.
it opens the door to manipulation because the risk with that isn't the John Glazer example, it's the Johnny Walker one who has access to all this stock.
Yeah.
1 year they spend tons telling the world, there's Brora in this, there's Brora in this, and they stop using it, but that message stays out there forever.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
Yeah,
That's why the law exists.
Yeah.
To protect the macro, not the micro. So John can get away with it, but at a big level, shivas can say, oh, there's 30-year-old Strap Isla and every 12-year-old shivas. Yeah. We all learn that. We all get hit it on Instagram. We all get told that message for 1 year, and then it's forever. And they can put whatever they want in after that. That's why. It's not.
I'm not going to say anything about the large corporate marketing machines.
And don't turn the camera on me either.
Yeah, we need someone.
We know who you are.
On a boom. Yeah.
Cool. Has anyone got anything on that particular drought? Any more on that one?
It's less heathery than Highland Park normally is, which it's quite different, which is lovely. I mean, it's a beautiful drought, but I won't say it's un-Highland Parky, but it doesn't have that kind of hint of heather and lavender and that kind of brackeny or semi-pina colada.
You're going to have to be very careful when you use the word semi and pina colada.
Especially with
We
that
don't want
Do you guys want a little break, or do you want to go straight on to the next one? So we've got. I mean, the two elements that are left are, and it probably could be worthwhile doing actually both at the same time, because I don't want to give you. Well, doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense trying the Kalila before the blend because you'll end up just tasting smoke. So it's probably worth actually trying the blend now, which is the combined all, and then you can actually try the Kalila after, which is the lower strength element anyway. So it just gives you an idea. I mean, is that, unless you want to try them the other way around, but if they're side by side, at least for you guys, you can taste and understand kind of where the flavour comes from.
You just bought a 60% leafy stout. I mean, that's all you need. Basically.
That was 86 litres.
An APB or whatever they call it.
And both of these two. Then we'll share that. Share, definitely share.
You would hope so for that.
So why no grain?
It's like almost 1, 2.
I didn't use.
Yeah, got any.
Yeah, I've got none. That's what it is. No, I've got literally. Literally. No, I've got other experiments that I'm using. I want to work with grain on other things that I think are probably better. Because I think you can still get the sweetness from single malt. It's much cheaper. Don't get me wrong, and you could use grain, and you could probably bring down the price on it, which I get. But I think if you're going to make something that's worth drinking and you can feel that tastes like a single malt and you can still offer it at a good price, then why not do that?
Go the extra mile.
Yeah, grain can pull it down in strength. I think if it's an old grain, great. But then again, you getting into the much higher.
Old grain, you don't really
You don't want to mess with either, so it's difficult. Yeah, I've got other ideas for grain. I think I don't know. Personally, I think it's currently misused. I think there's a category there that can be used in a much cooler way. So if the experiments work, cool. We'll have a cool tasting on a new release, which will be that. If it doesn't, then you'll see it in. You might see it with another indie box. Well, yeah, that should be good.
But I mean, I do like it. But I thought you said you had a bad experience on Black Box.
We're going to do that, otherwise we're going to have boiling glasses.
Yes, it's just that smell. Like he loves them. I would prefer.
What about the artist?
Something else is around white label.
Having a packet.
Oh, well, we've been working on the label yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, they're not horrendous. They taste quite unique.
But remember,
They are heavy. We're going to get too like whacking out and like packing it out. You're alright. I want to get into the taste.
That's a conversation.
So is that the
yeah, we'll do this one after.
So, I mean, I'm concerned about Balmenic because it is so viscous, so that almost is like your grain whiskey effectively, because I suppose the grain whiskey would kind of do that kind of viscosity and kind
of a younger grain whiskey as well. So younger grains will act the heat and the sweetness. You might get the kind of green notes that you would get from maybe. Actually, there's a lot of blends generate cool sweet, so obviously as you talk about it, strength is right.
So, have you pulled the strength down or
This is as it is.
as it is? And how long did you marry everything together and then put it into a cask and age it for a certain amount of time and then
Yeah, so the first So this one is this is the blend. So this is the final product, right? So we'll try the Kalila after that. Turn that off.
Yeah, I need a pen. Turn it off right
So yeah, so this is the next one. So this is the blend itself, right? So Carl Cashman is the guy, artist on the label. He's literally done about 4/5 of the wall out the back before he was rained on. And he delayed it 2 weeks again. He's coming down in a couple of weeks in order to finish it. He's actually going to do the entire wall. So that's kind of that element there. If you want to go out the back, you can look at it, or we can just quickly flip the light on and we can sort of see half of the kind of chaos that's going on out there. But basically, really cool guy. If you do like any of his stuff, just go and have a look at it. The reason I say that is because it's also UV related. So if you kind of UV light it up, it kind of it's a bit awesome. But anyway, really nice guy. Oloroso Sherry Butt, and it was this is 51.6. That is natural cask strength. So basically, that is all the components thrown in together and all the flavours, put into one space. Effectively, the Glenglassaugh 17, the Balmenic 16 and 17 were put in 2020. The Highland Park in 2021. Some more Balmenic 16 was put in 2022. and then finally Caol Ila was put in earlier this year in 23, so in early part of this year. So basically it's aged for that entire period of time, all of it marrying together. So that's kind of what you get with it all.
Question. Did
Yo.
you add things deliberately that way, or did you add them after tasting?
Yeah, I think after tasting it up to the point of the Highland Park, I felt that it just needed some more smoke.
Still working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the element of Caol Ila, which was added this year, I don't think it needed to be married or aged further in terms of getting more of the sweetness from the actual cask itself, which is sherry. So that's something else that kind of adds to it. It adds the smoke flavour which you get from that particular distillery. So kind of when you try it, it kind of all comes together. So, yeah.
With you doing your research with all the competing products, was there anything else that was kind of blended and bottled at the same sort of percentages? Do you think making a blended cask strength probably adds to the depth and value that you're looking for?
I think so, yeah. But I was more. What I wanted something that lasted longer than just an early mouthful.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of other blends I might have tried.
So I think the Thompson Bros have done a couple which sit at 50, maybe, or just under 50. So and both of, or one of which specifically was absolutely delicious. Yeah, but the other one was not so delicious. So, and I don't know whether that was the components that they put in it, or they were able to get into that. Other than that, though, no. I think most choose to just create a blend, and then they say that the optimum space is going to be at the lower strength. So. So yeah, this is a blended malt.
So yeah, because there's blended malts and then blend. Because you're not allowed to call it a vatted malt anymore. No, because that was because Compass Box had a vatted malt, and then literally managed to bottle one before midnight when the law changed, so they've got it out before and whatnot. But yeah, I don't know why you can't call it a vatted malt. I mean,
strange.
Can I ask a really stupid question? I thought blended was like the inferior whiskey, but you can have like a blend that's all cask strength and that's still
Yeah. So you don't often see it. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, so I've been completely transparent with what we put into this particular blend, and therefore it just sits as it is. What's pulled the strength down from those higher, 70s and 60s is the last whiskey, which is the Caol Ila, which is sitting at 42%. So it's kind of so it's just kind of like sits between the two. But yeah, you could get, but they've chosen to pull the strengths down. I don't know whether it is blended together and then pulled in strength, whether it's pulled in strength then blended together with some of these large companies. I don't know the ins and outs of their blending elements, so it just depends on how they do it. But yeah, they do exist, but not often.
This is unique in that sense.
Super unique. Yeah.
Does anyone need clarification on the difference between a blended Scotch and a blended malt?
Yes.
So, blended Scotch is grain whiskey as the main part. So grain whiskey is usually column distilled. It's usually quite comparatively light in flavour, and you can make it all day long cheaply because you don't have to do it in batches. You put beer in the bottom, you get grain whiskey out the top, and you stick it in barrels. Job done. That's Hay Club. Happy to.
So that's a blended.
That's grain whiskey.
Okay.
So when you make blended Scotch, you make the core of it grain whiskey, which is nice and cheap and comparatively, and then you add single malts to it, like salt, pepper, seasoning, to create a product which then goes out like Johnny Walker, like Chivas or whatever. And it can be a quality process for sure, but it can also be a cheap and cheerful, white label on the central aisle of some Scandinavian supermarket.
Where are you going with that?
Yeah, hello.
They've got a lot of money, those little lawyers.
So does that mean that
Just
all-
say allegedly,
all
you'll be
Scotch
fine.
has to be double pot distilled?
So yeah, you can't. Yes, all no, not double. It has to be pot distilled. So all single malt Scotch has to be pot distilled. Auchentoshan, for example, is triple distilled, a bit like Ireland, where there's a tradition of triple pot distillation. But most Scotch is double pot distilled, and what that means is you end up with a more robust flavour. Rule of thumb. So blended whiskey before the 70s was what everyone drank. If you look back in time, between 1800, when it really became a thing, and like 1970, everyone was drinking blended Scotch with grain whiskey as the core, and then single malts added. And it wasn't until the 60s, 70s when Fiddick and people like that started kicking off big style with single malt, and they started promoting it as better than, you know, the better than thing than blended whiskey, that habits changed. So that's blended whiskey. It's got a core of easier, cheaper grain whiskey. Blended malt is what we've got here, and this didn't really kick off until Monkey Shoulder. That was the first mainstream. That was because when
always been blended malt.
yeah, but the category wasn't created. No one needed a name for it until William Grant came along and said, "Well, we're going to release like a 4 or 5 whiskey blended malt."
Dave Bruton to do the history of blends.
I've got this.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying.
Yeah. We should do a history thing. History with Dave. Just gonna wait for him to write a book about it, and then
Another one.
Another book. So, yeah, blended malt is a bunch of different malts blended together. Blended Scotch, without using the word malt, is grain whiskey with single malts for flavour. Does that make sense? So, intrinsically, blended malt will cost more to produce.
So blended malt will always be pot distilled.
Yeah. It's
Pretty cool.
Pre 2000, I think 2006, it'd be you'd have a rather than blended malt.
yeah, there have been different names for it, but yeah, the increase in demand and mainstream use of blended malts created a rename and a proper rules.
This is entirely on a design standpoint. It's hardly anything like this. But is there any reason why every other label design, being a single cask, has had a character on it, and this being the first blended is in of itself just a pattern?
No, good question. No.
Or is it just adding things to the...
Well, actually, yeah, the image looks like a blend of colours. It's just Cole's design. Yeah,
There is
it just so happened.
absolutely no relation
Just
whatsoever.
It's
absolute
an
coincidence.
existential crisis just in a bottle.
Yeah, complete coincidence.
How many colours? I've said it. How many colours are blended in there?
How do you
Rather
choose your
quickly, there
artwork?
is also
That's a good
And
segue.
now that I'm actually looking at it, when you look at the
Super hard.
purple, you look at the Kalila Postman, you got purple on here, and then you got the Tamdu, which was blue.
Easy, Darren
Yeah,
Brown.
all of this is talk about.
Like, I'm
Sorry, Dan,
looking way too
even
much.
worse. Dan Brown.
I don't want to say it's a magic circle level shit.
If you'd like to leave
You
your
might just be too
essay
smart
on
for
my
your
desk.
How do you choose your artwork? So how do you find your artists? Because it's not something we've really talked about before in these launch things.
I think there's so many people who are amazing at what they do, but I think it's hard finding artists that can do commercial artwork like this and also then recreate it on a real wall. So there's so many that are amazing, which I'd love to work with on labels. The problem is that them kind of going, oh yeah, great, and then oh yeah, we've got a 20-foot wall out the back. If you could paint that as well, they go fuck you. So basically, it's the ones that don't say fuck you. We go, oh cool. No, so it's I think just basically a mix of people who I know and who have made recommendations through. They've kind of said, oh look, Seb, check out these guys or this guy or this woman, and you know, we just kind of like work on a basis like that, and I think it kind of works really well. Whether it's local down here or whether it's national, it's just exciting. I mean, for example, Mike Boyd is an old mate of mine who's a tattooist, but he also does really cool murals as well. Oddly, he does this kind of block shapes, but interestingly, he decided to do something which was less abstract to kind of what he normally does, and he was just so content to create an Isle of Bird, which was nice. Hunto, love his stuff, and he does lots of bits and pieces Italian, but does lots of bits and pieces up in London. And I kind of messaged and I said, look, it's because I've seen lots of his bits and pieces all up in London, and he didn't want anything at all to come down here, and I was saying that's just crazy. So he's like in his early stages of his kind of artwork, but I think oddly, from a commercial perspective, he's got an amazing look about what he does. And then you've probably seen loads of Nathan Bowen stuff down here. He's kind of all over the place. Yeah, he's decided to make Brighton his second home, and every single boarded up building now he's decided to cover in his stuff, which is cool. And then obviously Postman.
And then the most mainstream out of all of them.
Which one?
Postman,
yeah. I think so, yeah. The weird thing is that when you're having a chat to these artists, it's funny because you say, right, look, I love what you do, create something that you want to create. The first thing they say, how about a wolf? I'm like, fuck you. How about creating something that isn't a wolf? Because it's like, that's not their stuff, and they literally, the first thing they do is that. Obviously for the Postman, that was quite interesting because it was a bit abstract, so it wasn't just a wolf, and it was, what was it, 40 foot? Wolf lady on the rear wall, which was wicked.
So do you ever try and match the artist's like style to the whiskey, or is it?
No,
fucking hell.
It's really, really hard to just get like.
Get someone.
No, but I think more because the timing it takes. So, for example, if you're looking to bottle something, you're looking. You find. Let's say it's a single cask. You find a single cask you like. The bottling lead times anywhere between 6 weeks and 12 weeks. So you then, once it's bottled, we then know what the strength is. So we bottle everything at cask strength. So then at that moment in time, we have to have a label ready in place so that we can actually get the strength put on it, the bottling date put on it, the number of bottles put on it. Then that goes to print. In the interim period, we have to have the artist who's already created the artwork. Then it comes to the launch. So for example here, it's like trying to then fit in, because we only do 4 a year, fit in the launch of getting the artist down here to have painted the rear of the yard, or at least 3/4 painted, in order to then kind of launch it at the same time. It's very difficult to try and tie in all of those all at the same time. Yeah, super difficult.
Especially with Mike, who lives in New York.
Oh yeah, and Mike came over from New York. He was in the summer, so he no longer lives in London, which is when because I've known him for years. I said, I'm moving to New York. But I'll come and paint your rear wall, no problem at all. I'm here for 2 weeks, very specifically in July, so I'm having to try and fit everything into that 2-week period when he's over here painting. And luckily it was sunny, which is cool. So, but it makes it very difficult.
Current release, it's just been.
I think this is the third. It was the third attempt when he came down last week. Yeah.
I've been trying to fix a window at the deli for like a month.
Yeah. It's impossible.
Every single day that the carpenter's good to come. Well, the window's fine.
Hey mate, I've been trying to dig up my summer potatoes for 3 months.
I feel like summer potatoes and it's a week away.
Yeah. No, they are now mulch for next year's potato planting. Let's be honest.
There's rumours that there's a collab with.
I thought I was going to segue into my Pachin.
Can you confirm or deny that?
So that's funny. I don't know whether I haven't spoken to him yet. So he's left some interesting artwork and number, in order to actually. I think he wants to.
Yeah.
The question is, will Dylan paint a 30-foot picture on the rear wall?
If so, we need to just because that'll be hilarious.
He's got some great ideas though.
How any of those will fit.
Yeah, but I think the issue is but this is again, it's like it'd be great to do cool stuff like that all the time. I'd love to be able to create amazing bottles all the time. The problem is that I think I like the unique nature of the fact that the rear wall changes and it evolves. And I'm kind of slightly stubborn as well in the way that I work, so therefore kind of want to kind of keep them in cahoots with one
a bit
another.
of aggro when you got the the sawmill up on the north, if I remember correctly.
In
The first release.
so that was well, it went up relatively easily, I think. But in terms of, I don't think we didn't get anything from neighbours or.
No, I just thought it was an iron meant to put up on the wall.
But, well, to be fair, it was actually pretty straightforward for him to stick that one up. I think it's just the way that each of them, for example, when Nathan came, he decided to not go any higher than where he could reach, for example. And then since then, other people have gone, well, that seems to have only gone up there, so I'm going to do that. So it's like, well, you've got an entire canvas out the back which you can actually cover, do it. No, but it's interesting seeing how each of their approaches work. For example, Tom Blackford, again, super cool stuff. But he did. It's all freehand as well. He's just literally up there, just going right. I can see that. Literally no outlines, nothing whatsoever. Just freehanded this whole.
He had to do it in 2 stages, though. Can we remember why? He went out and got really drunk. Oh no! He was always going to do it in 2 stages. We went out and got super drunk after doing the first day. We all took him to the Great Eastern and got He didn't get bagged. He got zacked. And then came in the next day, and I had to throw him cans of paint because once he was up the ladder, he was not coming down and going back up again for love nor money. And he was hanging out of his arse. But he nailed it. It was fucking amazing.
Such a cool picture.
Do you ever get sad, like when one painting gets replaced by another, like when you like
A little bit.
Yeah.
She must get attached to it.
Yeah.
Is there a plan in place for when like the paint slowly gets further and further out?
The garden gets smaller and smaller.
That's a good point. Do we need to apply for planning permission?
Yeah, you can change the dimensions of the premises.
I mean, that'll be
I'm gonna refuse
they'll be
outright
cutting
to do
walls like just like level like back
You do
when the skate park got removed. There'll just be like there'll be a day where you just remove everything.
I'm hoping in the future, when there is this sort of possible future apocalypse, we're going to be in a situation where someone uncovers this place and then they can peel back the years, like a tree, go, wow, this was great. Look at this is like, and like each layer is then kind of hung in a museum somewhere, which would be cool.
Did you know that Nathan Bone was going to turn up with someone else?
Not for it.
He did.
The name guy was there.
Yeah, it was name. Yeah, he didn't tell me that he was going to, and then it did occur. And then he did that just up the road down here because I was not coming back.
Yeah, they've done
I just like, oh, Nathan, how you doing? And he was like, oh, yeah, it's super cool. And then the other guy up there, because I recognised his picture as well.
Yeah. Actually, since that, I've seen him everywhere. In London, the Nathan Bone.
Yeah.
Even in Orpington on Peter Express. I stopped the war one.
Oh, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot from that area as well. I think Hunter is that region as well. So yeah.
No, Hammersmith.
Yeah, they're cool. It's all
Hammersmith.
in that place.
Yeah, it's nice to.
At the end of the world.
It's not
Yeah. First time to get you a bottle of that.
The first time, because we had Snub up for so long, comparatively.
Yeah.
The first time we painted over Snub, everyone was a little bit like, oh man. But then you very much get used, to the idea that it's all transitory. Transient. That's what I was looking for. Thank you. I'm going with that. It takes you on a train. Yeah, it's all transient, so you kind of get used to that. A bit like what do we do with these walls now that there's no real estate left?
There is.
And the answer is, I don't think we can whitewash them or anything like that really. Just let it build.
Yeah.
The floor is very divisive. Seb hates the floor being drawn on. I don't mind it at all. It's already transient. If you put it on the floor, it's transient because it just rubs off when you walk over it. It gets mopped. Just keep it. But we can't stop these things. We can, but realistically we can't. So do it before you
Hard to not notice someone drawing on the floor.
Yeah, but once they start it, I end up with a whole load of the first 3 letters of a bit of graffiti.
Damn it! Why did it?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much.
So this is the other component. It's the smokiest. So the reason why I leave it to last is probably because it would have maybe wrecked the flavour of what you just tried. So, but this is what pulled down the strength to the blend, and it did it naturally because this was a kind of plus cask basically. So it was one that had lost strength, and because there was a leak, there was an air leak in the cask. So it was cask strength of 40, I think it's 42 points. I don't know where the 42.4. 42.4. So it had pulled right the way down. It's only 14 years as well. So there's a problem with the cask. So traditionally you would probably, Caol Ila itself fills I think anywhere between 63.5 to 67.5, depending on what it is. And it's
2007.
16 years.
To 2023, yeah. 16.
Yeah, 16 years. So 16 years. So it shouldn't have lost the strength that it did, basically. But from an experimental point of view, it was actually great to be able to use it rather than pulling it down with water. It was great to be able to use a lower strength alcohol to do it with, and one that I wanted to add that smoky flavour to. So, yeah.
So at the beginning of this, do you wrap these all in a glass and say, well, this is going to taste nice?
Mm-hmm.
Or in your head, do you just know that you think it's going to work?
Unlike other people who probably have a decent setup, mine is literally a glass and lots of bottles, and just basically going, oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. And it's very difficult to kind of understand. As I say, this is the first experiment to kind of understand in terms of the volumes that go into everything. But now I have like you were saying, you've got that kind of, I know it's like a roadmap basically. That's the kind of plan. There is an outline, and I kind of can see now what that creates. I can now, off the back of that, splice off and create other things that could work, maybe. I don't know. In terms of volumes now, and do I necessarily need to have things aging for that length of time, 2 years? Maybe not. Maybe it is, get some into some smaller casks to kind of speed up that kind of, sherry flavour profile or anything like that, and then can kind of all vat it together, but blend it together.
Yeah, because the only sherry influence is on the
only sherry is the
butter.
Yeah. Which you don't get a huge amount of, but there's still that sweetness. You can feel that, but yeah. Yeah, there you go.
But just because I've got my commercial hat on, this is the one that you can actually buy.
Woo! Oh yeah, so the remainder of it we chucked into, cut the leftovers loose. Grab a seat here. Yeah, so this is the remainder of the amount that was put in. So basically, I didn't know what else to do with it, and we have now cut the leftovers of this, which is basically the bin ends, basically. And I didn't want to wait any longer. I thought it tasted all right as it was.
We couldn't leave it any longer in cask.
Yeah,
it would have stopped being whiskey.
Yeah. And we've got other Caol Ila that we can work with, Caol Ila stock we can work with. So let's just get it into a bottle. It's Christmas.
Oh my lord, your marketing skills are epic.
That's all on recording as well, so we can look back at that. And
It is interesting that there is something about whiskies that age that lose a load of ABV. Something to do with the wood interaction, or something that happens that creates a certain kind of flavour that I don't think you get with anything else.
Yeah. No, I do agree. But yeah, am I a huge fan of this on its own?
Yes, Seb, you are. You're a massive fan.
There's a question.
Did
you have something in mind? Did you have something you were working towards, or did you just want to work towards tasting?
On what? For this?
Yeah, were you just like, I want to work towards tasting, or work towards...
So the blend, I wanted to work towards something that people could drink, tastes good, and people can share as well, and also that's at a price that's competitive within the market. So exactly that.
But what I'm saying is, like, did you have a whiskey, or did you have something that you were like?
No, I had a whiskey flavour that I wanted, yeah, absolutely. So, and that's hopefully what has kind of been created, which is kind of like sweet, savoury, smoky. Basically, it's everything that you want to have in a, I don't know, in a glass, I guess. But, the reality is that this is first attempt at doing it. I think there's some refinements that can be made. I think there's certainly elements that I've learned during the process that I can make adjustments for. So I think I could probably make a better thing next time.
Not for off sale.
You'll step a lot away from it. Like you have a plan to kind of.
I think it's a good base. I think it's a good base, and I think once you get a good base, then I think you can. It's like you can just refine it, and you can just make small adjustments. And it's only small adjustments, and so it's trying to find that exact flavour that can work really well.
Yeah, it could be that you feel like this is one train of thought, and you might want to have like now a different blend.
So yeah. Look, I think the more variables that are made in a blend, then the more small frameworks that can be then sort of kind of worked within. But I think this is a really good framework for a good whiskey. So the question is, can it be made any better? I think it could with time, maybe. Yeah. So, but again, it's like, are there elements that could be made better within it? Probably. And the question is, how can we go about doing that? And then going about doing that. The question is whether in the future the cost associated with that allows it to be priced at the same price. I don't know. With the way the world is at the moment, it's really hard to know. But I think it's a good kind of like starting point. If like you want to make a brownie, you want to make whatever it is, you know that you have to have like primary ingredients. These are primary ingredients now I can use every single time, and then kind of add. That's and it's like evolving. Like you guys are the first people that have tried it and kind of tried to understand like what goes in it, and it works from a purchase perspective. You can go out and buy like another blend that sits at the same price point that has been pulled in strength. That is kind of like that there are going to be 10,000, 50, 100,000 bottles of this stuff, and here it literally is a limited blend, a limited, small, unique parcels.
People that I trust, if it's someone who's
too much.
Can't take it out. Reverse time. That would be really good. Cool.
So I'll give you proper what we call.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along tonight for the first interwebs live streamed. I think I watched it.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
You're not in camera.
Yeah, I know. I like to maintain my sense of mystery. I'm much like the postman.
Uh-oh.
Fuck. Rumbled.
Face to your
Are there any
face.
viewers?
No. Thank you very much for coming. It's been a really interesting process for us to see this coming together from the sample we had before we had the Kalila in it, and then it's experimentation on a scale that is a little bit scary for people. Other than how was it a bit scary, or was it very scary?
It's weird because what's interesting about the single casks is that I'm not the blender. I've not created it. I can adjust flavours, and we can put it into various different casks, or we can, having tasted 100 casks, we can try it and we know what's amazing versus what is utter dog shit. But with a blend, it's different because you're reliant on your own flavours to try and create something that you hope other people are also going to enjoy. And it's the same as, I guess, a chef if they're making something. I like some chefs, don't like other chefs. They usually
get to taste it.
When you're on camera.
This is the thing, they get to taste it and refine it before they throw it out.
They can do it multiple times, whereas here it's not. Like we were just saying that. You can't, once you put something into something, you can't take it back out again. And you probably couldn't do that in chefing either, but you do it in much smaller volumes.
Bin it. It's no
Anyway.
bin it. You can't bin it.
Rabbit hole.
100 litres of whiskey.
So what we're doing for you guys this evening, you guys have access to the blend. I'm pointing at the wrong thing. Where has it gone? There it is. You guys have access to the blend tonight, and you have access to the Kalila. And we had a highly productive business meeting earlier where we said if you buy both bottles, we're knocking off 10 quid. Yeah. So if you want to get one of each, you can get a tenner off. The blend is 50 quid. The Kalila is 80 quid. Yeah.
80?
Yeah.
80?
80.
70.
60.
I'll work it out.
This is the difference. Small independent businesses discussing like whether they can survive another 12 months or not.
If you get both, they're both £50. You work it out.
Nice try.
Buy one, get one free.
If it's £10 off both.
No, it's not 10 off. Jesus. It's just a tenner off if you buy both of them.
What's the total?
Okay, so they're both
Stop making
£55.
us do basketball.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Just buy it.
It's 120 quid for both of them if I got it right. I'm pretty sure it was 80
If it's
quid.
70, then it's 110 with £10.
Seb said 70.
Yeah, don't listen to him.
Yeah, he said 70. And then it takes 10 off.
80.
Then it's 110.
80.
So it's, right, so
I mean, we've got this on video.
Okay.
Yeah.
80 minus 10 plus 50 is 100.
Well, Seb is saying it's 70.
120.
Because we don't want to make a
I
loss.
gave you my working as well.
That is the plan.
Let's not do that. Let's be here another 12 months.
Yeah, that would be great. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.
thank you.
I'm going to scream this into the video before we finish. Is that fingers crossed? Like and subscribe, guys.
Smash
like and
that like
subscribe.
button.
Oh no, please don't. Please don't.
If
Otherwise,
you
I'll
don't
have to
like
stop.
and subscribe,
I'll have
we'll
to stop
take
calling
over.
Seb.
Ring the bell.
I'm going to have to keep calling Seb dude for the entire thing. I'm going to cry. But we are, hopefully, fingers crossed, on the cusp of a 12 o'clock license, which will be absolutely. It hasn't happened yet.
May your license be as easy as mine.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So everybody cross your fingers. We should find out in the next couple of days.
We need to deliver orders.
I'm going to jinx it now. Seb is crying because he thinks I'm jinxing.
Oh yeah, no,
I just know about the space.
I can buy you from
as my
from 10 o'clock onwards.